Welcome to the first video on my new YouTube channel, FM Analysis. You may well know me from my Twitter handle, also FM Analysis, where I talk a lot about the game, I talk a lot about general football, and I post blog updates on a couple of different places. For Football Manager content, I used to have my own blog, Football Manager Analysis. And recently I started a blog with Ronaldo, which is the Dugout FM on WordPress. You can find all my updates for my Ajax Amsterdam save on there. Currently reaching up to the 4th season, so there's a lot of content on there for you to check out. I decided though to start a YouTube channel. I've been quite impressed with a lot of the videos that I've been seeing on YouTube recently. There's a lot of interesting pieces, specifically the likes of Matthias at Dead FM. Matthias plays the game in a very similar way to me, but even then I didn't quite feel like there was enough there that interested me, I suppose, more than anything else. I like to play the game very tactically. I like to develop my own players and develop youth, specifically coming through the old club, but also new gens that I'll take in through recruitment. So I want to create a save and create a playlist and create a series which will be Analysing Atalanta. As you can see from the screen that we have in front of us, Atalanta in Italian Serie A will be the club for this series. I want to show exactly how I go about building a club, how I go about setting my own imprint onto the club, and how I go about developing a style of football and a style of player that resonates with me. So I figured that instead of going one of the bigger clubs in one of the leagues around Europe, I generally play in Europe, just it's my comfort zone more than anything else, I think. Instead of going one of the bigger clubs, I figured that I'd choose a smaller club where we may have to work a little bit harder to build something sustainable. But at the same time, I didn't really want to go with a club where I would have to build the youth facilities from the start. So as you can see, when we click into the facilities page for Atlanta. We have superb training facilities, superb youth facilities, good junior coaching, and above average youth recruitment. Now, obviously, the training youth facilities are exactly where we need them to be at the moment, which is good because there's not a lot of money for improvements within the club. We will, however, have to start improving the junior coaching and youth recruitment at some point so that we can make sure that the new gens that we get into the club in the first place are up to a suitable standard and that we can develop them the way that we need to. Atalanta are a team, for those that don't know, in Serie A who have a great history for producing young players, which is something that doesn't really resonate with a lot of Italian teams. One of the biggest problems in Italian football at the moment is the unwillingness of Serie A clubs to give young players a chance and to play them, give them playing time. Atalanta, on the other hand, partly because of the financial restrictions that they have. They're not a well-off club by any means from the city of Bergamo, which is an industrial city near the north of Italy. But because they don't have the money to spend on expensive foreign signings, they tend to shop at the lower end of the market and to intersperse young players through their own club's youth academy and play them in the first team. So the idea of this first video was just basically for me to start getting comfortable with a monologue more than anything else. I've done a few podcasts recently and I'm getting used to conversations via Skype and things like that. But an actual monologue for a YouTube channel will be new to me. So will the editing process, so apologies if the first few videos are a little bit rough. Any constructive criticism, more than happy to take, and I will do my best to get smoother and quicker as I go along. But let's just have a quick look at the Atlanta squad. Here's the first team squad. I've sorted the list of players by potential, which is something I always do when I start a new save, just so I can see who I've got, who my assistant manager rates, and have a click through them and make my own mind up more than anything else. The two players at the top of the list, Andrea Conti, who is a right back, and Marco Sportiello, a goalkeeper, are two that are of specific interest to me. So we have a look at Conti. As you can see, he's 21 years old. He's got a fairly determined personality. Now, you'll quickly get the impression, and it's true, that the personality of a player is extremely important to me. Fairly determined, is a positive personality, and it'll help his development. He is under contract till 2019, which means we've got him for a good few years so we can see exactly how he's going to develop before we decide we have to make a decision on whether we're going to keep him. But at 21 years old, if this was a new gen coming into the club at 16, I would expect him to be fully developed and ready to go at 21. He would either come into the first team setup or he would go out on loan and potentially get sold if I decide he's not going to break the first team. But when you take over a new club for the first time, obviously you have these young players who have gone through some development before the game starts, as it were, and you have to make a choice in whether you can develop them further than the way they are, or whether they're just going to be cut loose. I'm quite high on Conte. As you can see, he is a fullback, a right back. He does have PPMs. Unfortunately, the resolution on my laptop isn't great, so I need to click through a few screens for you to see exactly where we are. He runs with the ball down the right, he gets forward whenever possible, and he hugs the line. Now, these PPMs are going to be a little bit of an issue for me, mainly because I plan to use my right back as an inverted wing back. Obviously, the premise behind an inverted wing back is that he will move into these positions and maybe slightly advance to here, but if I've got PPMs where Conte runs the ball down the right, gets forward whenever possible, and hugs the line, he's going to want to do precisely that. He's going to want to get beyond the wide player and hug the line, create width for my team. So it'll be interesting to see over pre-season and maybe the first couple of games how those PPMs interact with the instructions that I've given him to do the opposite. We'll keep a close eye on that, and something might have to give with the role that I choose for him. So if we look at Marco Sportiello, he is 23 years old, again a positive personality. Superb rating for the junior team at 4 stars, for the senior team, sorry. Now, as you can see, he has quite a few 15s in his technical and in his mental as well. He looks like quite a prospect. I do have a bias towards tall goalkeepers. I know that height really doesn't make any difference in the game, but it's just a personal thing. And at 6'4", he has that height. The contract doesn't expire until 2020, and he's already valued at 4.3 million. So that tells me that the game rates him quite highly. He's certainly going to be our first choice keeper going forward, and we will see how we go from there. Now, if I go down the list a little bit, I have a couple more interesting players I want to show you in the first team squad. Obviously, they're all Italian. Roberto Gagliardini, he is a midfielder, 21 years old with a spirited personality. I quite like his base attributes. If you look, determination is 15, vision 13, work rate 14, natural fitness 15. Then you've got 13s for tackling, passing, first touch. First touch and technique are very important to me. In a later video, I will talk about the DNA, the club DNA that I'm going to look to implement with Atalanta, and you will find that first touch technique, passing, every player, regardless of their position, will be expected to have a certain ability there. It will differ on exactly where they play, so a midfielder will expect to have higher stats for those areas than, say, a left back or a centre half. But this gives me something to build on, especially with a 21-year-old that I'm quite happy with. Again, he has a few PPMs. Plays short simple passes, comes deep to get the ball. Now, that's fine. I don't mind playing a short passing game, usually. That tends to be one of the ways that I'll go, unless I really look to stretch the game. If I play the bigger teams in Italy, for example, Juventus, Roma, Fiorentina even, I may well look to go a little more direct and hit the line a little bit. So in those games, it may well be that he doesn't play, but we'll see as the season progresses. After him, I have one more. I have a striker called Gaetano Morachello. He's 21 years old. He's a striker. And as you can see, again, he's got his technical attributes aren't great, but 13 for dribbling, 13 for finishing, 13 for first touch, 11 for technique. Now, that tells me that he does have a base there. He will be able to find the back of the net. His technique's a little bit concerning. Although for a 21-year-old striker, especially an Italian striker, I quite like his mental attributes, as you can see. 15 off the ball, 13 vision, 13 positioning, 12 decisions, 12 concentration, 13 composure, 13 anticipation. These tell me that he's going to get into the right places. And his mental attributes tell me that when the ball is in the final third of the pitch, he will be able to make the right choices to get into the right areas so that the pass can find him and give him a chance to score. Now, whether 13 for finishing, 13 for first touch, and 11 for technique will be enough in those areas remains to be seen. His contract's up in 2018, valued at 1.3 million, and his wages are negligible at the moment, really, for a club like us. So he will get some playing time. I plan to use the Chilean striker who, let me find him, Maurizio Pinilla, a player that I'm quite familiar with from when he played in Scotland for Hearts. He's a bit of a hothead striker, but he has got a good base of attributes that will be quite helpful. Unfortunately, his best role and duty is as a target man. I don't play with target men. I don't know why, I just have a bias against him more than anything else. He will play for me as an advanced forward more than anything else, and we'll see how he goes then. But at least I know that I've got some young legs that can come off the bench if need be. Now, I also want to show you a couple of players in my under 20 side who I'm quite excited about. First of all, we have Filippo Milioni. He's a promising midfielder, 16 years old, contract to 2018 with a resolute personality. Now look quickly at his attributes: 13 technique, 13 passing, 11 first touch, and then his mental: 17 determination, 11 anticipation, 11 decisions, flair 12, teamwork 12, vision 13, and he has good physical stats too. He can play either playmaking role in the centre. Not entirely sure that's where I'll end up playing him, and I certainly plan to start teaching him some player preferred moves very quickly, but I think that he is going to develop into quite the player for us. Now, Meligoni will be one of the case studies I'm going to use throughout the series. So every 3 months, every 3 months, sorry, in game, I plan to delve into a group of players, similar to, if you're reading my blog at the moment, my AX blog, I have a set of reports called Meet the Prospects, where I list all my best youth players at the moment and how they're developing, and give you a little bit of insight about what my plans are for them and how to help them develop and where I see them going in the future. I will be doing something similar every 3 months here. So we will look through players' profiles like this. You'll be able to see the progress of their attributes, and you'll be able to see what I've done in terms of adding player preferred moves, which I think is very important at this age, as you're looking to mould the player into the style of player you want them to become. So Meligione will be quite prominent in those initial few reports, and we'll see how we go with them. I also have another couple of players. Fabio Castellano, there you go. He is a 17-year-old midfielder. We've got a few good midfielders. Resolute personality, contracted 2018 too, and he is best as a deep line playmaker, but he has the PPM, gets forward whenever possible. That's quite counterintuitive when you have a deep line playmaker who gets forward whenever possible. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to try to unteach him that PPM, or if I'm going to play him in a slightly different role. I will look to add PPMs to these young midfielders, like try to dictate tempo and tries killer balls. I like those two PPMs in central midfielders. It gives us an element of control over the game, and it means that they'll be willing to play the through ball when it's on and when it's necessary. Oh, sorry, let's go back into Castellano. So as you can see, again, we've got 13 technique, 13 passing, 13 first touch, very good. Determination and flair are both 16 already, which is excellent. He doesn't have any other real mental attributes to shout about at the moment, so there will be some tutoring, and there will also be a specific training schedule that I'll look to put him on to try and develop the player, but he could well end up playing some first team minutes as well. I quite like as well that the player is very versatile. As you can see, I'm planning to play, I'll show you the tactics shortly, but I'm planning to play a 4-2-3-1 with 3 attacking midfielders strung out across the pitch. So the fact that Castellano can play in any of these 4 positions that I will use will make him a very valuable commodity for me going forward. At least I'd like to think so. Another player that I'm quite excited about is Tiziano Tulisi. He is a right winger. Um, very promising again. Only 17, resolute personality, and my assistant manager rates him quite highly. He has obviously 12 technique, 12 passing, 12 first touch. We know now, you know now, that I value those three attributes, technical attributes in my players, probably higher than any others. They're attributes every player has to have regardless. Again, 17 determination, which I like. Only 12 for pace, but he does have 13 for acceleration. So I'm hoping that we can get the physical attributes up, as well as his crossing. I don't really like a right winger with 7 for crossing, especially when we know how powerful crosses can be in this game. He also has some PPMs coming into the game. Gets forward whenever possible, which I don't mind. I'm quite happy for my right winger to go marauding up and attack. Shoots from distance. Now, shoots from distance is possibly the worst PPM in the game, in my opinion. You really don't want midfielders or wingers to have shoots from distance because they'll just shoot. It's exactly as it says in the tin. They'll get the ball 25 yards out, nothing really on, they'll just hit it. Maybe 1 out of 20 will actually go in, which fair enough. 1 out of 20, you'll get a great goal, you'll watch the highlight, you'll be very pleased with yourself for having the foresight to play a player with shoots from distance in the team. But the other 19 occasions, he may have missed a pass that's onto the back post. He may have missed the fact that he is a supporting midfielder 15 yards away with an easy pass, so he could switch the angle of attack. I don't like players shooting all the time. I want my wingers to get down the byline and preferably cut the ball across. So we will look to unteach him shoots from distance, but whether or not, let's just try it now actually. Let's see if we can do it right now. Training. Ah, okay, so somebody else has started teaching him this. I had no idea, didn't know that could happen. Only beginning to get grips with preferred move training, so cancel it. Yes, please. Now I've managed to cancel that, I hope. And let's see. Ramila is my tactical under 19 coach, under 20 coach. So let's start him on. Ideally, I would like him to play killer balls because I like that in a winger. I don't think quite often you'll find that they won't be able to learn it wide players. But look for the pass rather than the shot will hopefully encourage some cutbacks. I don't see Tiziano capable of doing that. Well, instead he wants me to stop Tiziano from getting forward whenever possible. I don't think so. I'd still prefer Tiziano starting my suggestion. Normally when this happens and you get that message, the player won't learn the PPM, but we'll just see how it goes and I'll keep you updated. So, I've given you an idea of some of the players, some of the young players in the team. Oh, sorry, there's one other. Boris Radunovic is a goalkeeper, 19-year-old goalkeeper who's 6'4". I like his base already. He looks like he's going to be quite promising. He's not very comfortable in my preferred sweeper keeper role, so we will see what we can do in terms of tutoring. He may get a loan move. I don't generally like to loan players until they're at least 21. If you've got a team, for example, as I've chosen Atalanta, I've chosen them because of their excellent facilities. I don't see the point of loaning players out of those facilities until they're almost fully developed. And in my opinion, that 21 is the key age to start loaning people out if you're going to loan them out. I may make an exception here to see if I can get him some football, some first team football, either at Serie C or Serie B, lower divisions, and just to see if it'll give him a little boost in his attributes, especially because I've got a young keeper ahead of him in the first team. It's always very difficult, but if one of them does end up getting sold, at least I know I have the other one. So now we've looked at a few of our players, we'll have a quick look at the tactics I'm going to set up with. Now, most of you who, if you follow me on Twitter or you follow my blog writing or any other writing that I do for other websites, you'll know that I'm very interested in the tactical side of the game. Recently, I was on a podcast, the Deep Line podcast, which is a football manager podcast. For those who don't know, if you don't listen to it, I highly recommend that you go away and subscribe to it right now and listen to a few old episodes. I was on one just last week with Shrunaldo, my co-blogger, and another person who's well known in football manager terms from Twitter. We did a tactics podcast, sorry, where we talked. The main focus of the podcast was on the two central midfielders in a 4-2-3-1. Now, luckily, I'd already decided on this save before that, I'd already decided to set up in this tactic. So I was able to talk a little bit about what I'm looking for out of my two central midfielders. Now, as you can see, it's a symmetrical 4-2-3-1, at least on the screen. Obviously, for those of you who don't know, the tactics screen, what you see here is your defensive shape. So when we're defending or transitioning into defence in the game, the team will revert to a 4-2-3-1 shape. This does have weaknesses. A lot of people nowadays in Football Manager 16, don't like playing without somebody in the DM strata. So a player there who's just basically insurance. The 4-2-3-1 doesn't give me that luxury. I'm also playing with my wide players pushed up. That's a personal preference for this save to see how it all works. That gives me another gap here. Now, these players will drop back in when we're defending, but they won't obviously necessarily track back completely. Part of this, the idea behind this series of videos, and part of the reason behind this tactic for the series of videos is that we're going to see if it works. So I'm going to show you in game what's working, what's not working, and talk about how I may actually change things and what changes I make to counter certain teams when they're doing things. I mean, for example, I'm going to come up against Juventus at some point in the season. Juventus are the team to beat in Italy, there's no doubt about it, and they will play their 3-5-2 against me. Now, a 3-5-2 against this system will be very interesting. I don't think that my system will cope with it very well. So we'll look at changes in game there, for example, and how I might look to combat the 3-5-2, how far I'm willing to go, how far I'm willing to be reactive and change to counter their threats and not trust my players almost to be able to break through on their own. But the tactic itself, we have, oh, I've just realised I haven't actually changed one of the roles that I was supposed to, so sorry, bear with me. Could be a central defender on stopper. There we are. So this is the tactic we're going to be going forward with. Maziel isn't there at the moment. I've played one game in this series so far, only the friendly against my under-20 side, for which I picked basically the side that was fittest. So there will be players in this first 11 here who don't start the first game and aren't in our competitive roster, as it were. They won't still be at the club even. So instead of Maziello, let's just drop in, as we discussed, Andrea Conte. Conte is going to be our right back. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, he has PPMs which encourage him to attack up this line. But I'm asking him to sit in this area more. So, in the first, after I played through the pre-season, I'm obviously going to play the pre-season off camera. There's no point in showing you the pre-season games, they don't mean much. But I will, I think, through those pre-season games, clip any highlights tactically that are interesting, and then do a video just basically talking through what I've seen. But I'm not actually going to change anything until we start to play competitive games, and then as we're playing through live comms and as we're playing through the season, you'll be able to see what's working, what's not working. I'm going to be very conscious of actually vocalizing my thoughts as I'm doing it. I'm not used to, as I said earlier, I'm not used to a monologue when I'm playing the game. So my plan is to tell you exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So Conte is going to look to come into this space, which is fine because we've got D'Alessandro and our winger support duty just in front of him. So D'Alessandro will look to occupy this area roughly, with Conte stepping in. Kurtic in the right centre midfield spot as a box-to-box midfielder and support. So he will look to break forward into this half space. And the half space is basically the channel. The guys at Spielverlagerung, a German language website who do a lot of stuff in English as well, for whom I'm going to be writing for next season. They have a big section on what half spaces are and how the players should interact within them. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, drop me a message and I will happily link you. Kurtic will move forward into the half space beside D'Alessandro, with the attacking playmaker on support dropping in beside him. So Diamanti, Kurtic and D'Alessandro will all work in and linking together. On this opposite side, I have Gomez. Alejandro Gomez is one of our best players. Maybe not in terms of his technical attributes, although 16 dribbling, 15 long shots, 15 technique, but his mentals and the way that he plays the game actually fit quite well with how I like to play. I'm quite excited to see how he goes. He knocks the ball past the opponent, which will be interesting for an inside forward. That's normally an attribute, a PPM that I would teach a winger, so we'll see how it goes. Gomez will cut inside. He will obviously then interact with Carmona, who is a CM on Defend duty. Carmona will sit in deeper and allow Gomez to occupy the space in field, while Brivio, our left wing back, is set to attack duty. So Brivio should move forward outside of Gomez. Carmona should be in a position to cover, at least slightly, for Brivio and Gomez as they cut in field or go upfield as they do. And hopefully you'll see all that tie in together. The keys to the tactic are the two central attacking players, Pinilla and Diamanti. Their roles, the false nine role at the moment for Pinilla is very much let's see what happens when I play him as a false nine. I've never managed to get a false nine to work properly outside of Barcelona, so I want to do it with Atalanta. Don't ask me why, it just seems like a good idea. So the false nine and the attacking playmaker and support will hopefully tie in nicely on either side with Gomez and Alessandro, and then Kurtic will be the next player coming in to add an attacking thrust. Now I find it's important. I'm obviously my mind's wandering now, but when I play the game, I find it's important to have players attacking at different depths. I've written an article about this before. So what we're basically going to have is Pinilla being the point, even as a false nine, he will be the point of the attack. Gomez will come in next because of his attack duty. D'Alessandro next because he's a support duty but he's in an advanced position. Kurtic next because he's a box-to-box midfielder. And then you'll have Brivio on the left-hand side. And possibly from time to time, if we're in prolonged possession, you'll see Conti, the right back, and Carmona move into more, maybe the centre of the opposition half. So you're going to have a lot of depth and a lot of angles as you build in the attack, if everything works properly. Whether it works properly or not remains to be seen. Now, for everything else, standard mentality. Just to start off with, I like standard mentality. It doesn't push your team too far one way or another. And fluid team shape because I have a big gap here and I want to make sure that the lines are very compact. So a fluid mentality will make sure that your defenders play close to your midfielders play close to your attacking midfielders, your attacking midfielders play closer to your strikers. So you're basically in a compact block. That has inherent risks, as you can see from the team instructions. I use quite a few. I know that there's a general feeling from the guys. I mean, I'm by no means an expert in the game. I didn't have any input into building the tactics creator. I don't have any input tactically now. Um, a lot of people say that you shouldn't use too many team instructions. I just use the ones that I feel like work, so I'm quite happy to do so. Tempo, higher, fairly wide width, slightly higher defensive line. Now, if you're playing a slightly higher defensive line, use the offside trap. It's just a little bit more insurance. We're playing a slightly higher line because we don't have a DM. We do have, as you saw me change, one of the central defenders is now in a stopper duty. So my hope is that when the ball does get clipped in that area between the midfield and the defence, when it is stretched, the stopper should be the first man out to meet it, while the other defender should be able to cover around behind him. Whether that works or not remains to be seen, and you'll see when I do. Prevent short goalkeeper distribution. I just like that. I like teams press up higher. It's one of the fundamental ways I see the game, so we're going to go with it. Play out of defence, very important to me again. I like my defenders, my fullbacks and my centre halves to get on the ball and to be the first point of playing forwards. Pass into space. I like, again, players to take a chance and to put the ball behind the defensive line for my attacking players to move forward onto. Passing directness will be mixed to start with. I may change that to short or direct depending who I'm playing. Be more expressive because why shouldn't we be? It's football, let's be expressive. And work the ball into box. Now, work the ball into box is basically my way of saying to the wide players, get down to here and work the ball into box. Or cut the ball back to the striker or to your opposite winger, and hopefully we'll get a few goals that way. The most frustrating thing in the game for me is when a winger hits a wide area and then shoots from a ridiculous angle when the cutback was on. I just want you to cut the ball back. So that's a brief insight into what my tactics will look like. I am going to go now and play pre-season. As you can see, we managed to beat our very difficult Atlanta under 20 side 2-0, thanks to a penalty of all things and a 20th minute goal from our defensive central midfielder. We didn't exactly cover ourselves in glory, let's face it. I do have a long list of friendlies against some interesting opposition: Feyenoord, Udinese, That's about it, to be honest with you. And then we're down to Kievo, a nice friendly against Kievo Verona to finish everything off, and we'll play in the Cup qualifying round 2 before then. I will be back for the first game of the season against Milan. Undecided yet. I'll wait and see what happens over the friendlies and decide whether I am going to show you how they've got on in terms of tactics. Maybe against Feyenoord, Udinese, and Kievo, I might be able to form enough of an opinion to show you some things that are working and some that aren't. But as I say, I'm not going to change anything until the season starts. As you can see, we have a hell of a start to the season. Home to Milan, away to Juventus, home to Fiorentina. Three teams that should be better than us, frankly. All three of them should be doing better than we are. So I'm going to start off. My first live column will be Milan. I've got a funny feeling I will also live call Juventus, even though the games are back to back, and that will not be a regular thing for the series. Away to Juventus, I think could be quite fun tactically. I might get my backside handed to me, but I'm going to make some changes, and we're going to see if we can set up pressing traps against Juventus, something that I'm not very good at in the game yet. So we're going to try. Basically, you can try along with me. You'll see me trying this, and you'll see if it fails or succeeds, and we can take it from there. So I'm going to leave you there. Thanks for checking out the first video. This hopefully will be a long running series. I plan to make quite a few of these, just a different form of medium for me. I find it quite interesting to interact with people in different ways, hence the podcasts, the more regular blogs, and hopefully a few YouTube videos. I can't promise that they'll all be short because, as you've just seen, I ramble quite a lot. Apologies. I will do my best to keep them as regular as possible, and if you have any constructive feedback or you just want to discuss anything that I've said, then please drop me a message on Twitter or a comment on the channel itself, and I'll pick it up, and I'm happy to speak with any of you. Until then though, take it easy. Thanks very much for watching.